Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing week 47 of my 2022 reads. This week I picked up a couple of kids books and quite a few different romance books, although not everyone worked for me. Timestamps and content warnings are in the description box below. First, I finished Yasmin the Detective by Saadia Faruqi, illustrated by Hatem Ali. This is kind of like an early reader book that has, the big words and lots of illustrations, and it was really sweet. It is about this young girl, Yasmin, who is trying to help out her grandmother who has lost some things. So she's trying to figure out where those things have gone, and she's trying to be a detective to discover their locations. It's a really sweet, very young reader's book, and it seems like this is maybe part of a series of these as well. In the back there was a list of all of these other books that are part of this series, and it was just like a lot of fun. I really liked the family dynamics. I loved that a lot of Urdu was used throughout the text because Yasmin and her family are Pakistani American. It was just like a really sweet book. Wasn't 100% sold on the way that the resolution happened in this, but other than that, I thought this was just a really great young reader's book, so I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Garlic and the Vampire by Bree Paulsen. This is a middle grade fantasy graphic novel that I heard about from Alice at the Book Castle, who I will link below. She basically said this was just a super sweet and cute kind of autumnal feel graphic novel, and I totally agree. The artistic style in this was just really, really cute, really sweet. We follow a garlic girl who is chosen by her village of other vegetable people to go and investigate this castle where they think maybe a vampire has moved in. And even though Garlic has a lot of anxiety, everybody tells her, hey, but you have natural immunity against the vampire, so you should be the one to go. So she's really working on bravery and overcoming various types of fears. So it's a very sweet story. I think maybe it didn't have like a huge amount of depth, but it was still super enjoyable and the art style was great. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I picked up a bunch of romances for Lovember, starting with The Roommate Risk by Talia Hibbert. This is one of Hibbert's backlist books that I'd had kind of sitting on my e-reader for a while and really wanted to get to, so I'm so glad that I did. This is basically about two people who have been friends since college, but the heroine, Jasmine, is someone who really struggles a lot with connections and doesn't want to be in relationships. She likes to have sex, but she doesn't like to mix kind of friendship and sex. And so she is a little difficult to get close to. And the hero in this story basically realizes early on that if he wants to be friends with her, they can't have a sexual relationship. And so he says, I'd rather be friends, but kind of on the inside, he's always been attracted to her. And then later on, kind of when they're adults, she ends up needing a place to stay because her apartment gets flooded and she needs to wait while that's repaired. And so they're forced into close proximity and kind of have to reevaluate their relationship. The way that this story plays out, it does a lot of these interspersing of the current timeline with back to various points in their friendship and sort of the development of that friendship and all these sorts of things. Also, lots of steamy sex in this. This is very much Talia Hibbert's kind of more emotional, slightly more characters dealing with anxieties and emotional issues that they have to overcome. So at times it did get just a little bit angsty for me, but other than that, I thought that the story really kind of progressed along a nice way, and like the hero is a total cinnamon roll, which I always love. So I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I finished Saffron Alley by A.J. Demas, which is the sequel to Sword Dance, which I read earlier in the year, and I'd been meaning to get to Saffron Alley. This is basically a male non-binary romance set in a secondary world that's inspired by kind of ancient Mediterranean cultures like Roman and things like that. And in the first novel, the two main characters come together when they are at a villa together for an event, and there is basically like a mystery going on that they have to work to solve together. And in the second book, one of the characters, Damascus, is going over to visit the other character, Varazda, in Varazda's home. And they really are trying to come together and build this relationship, even though they have just gotten to know each other and they're dealing with long distance, all these sorts of things. There's quite a bit of conflict with Varazda's family, kind of a found family that he has, where they feel threatened by Damascus coming. And they also are dealing with kind of a mystery where they think maybe somebody's going to get murdered. So it has that same kind of mystery vibe as the first one, but it also had a lot of family drama and a lot of just people being really difficult, which I found very hard at the beginning. But the relationship between the two of them does progress really interestingly and really nicely. So it still had a lot of good points, but I just was not into that kind of mean family drama at the beginning. So overall, I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I did DNF 2 romance novels, starting with Compromised into a Scandalous Marriage by Lydia San Andres. This is a historical romance that has a really cool setting. It is set, I think, around 1900, 1910, something around there, in the Caribbean, I think maybe Dominican Republic. And we follow 2 characters, a guy who has come to this island to sort of make his fortune, run a sugar mill, and then his neighbor, who is a woman whose older brother is very controlling and abusive, and she just really wants to be free of that. And because of the older brother being very difficult, they get into a kind of compromising situation where they have to get married. So I started this book and I was really interested because of the historical setting. You know, I just love different historical fiction that is set in different time periods and different places, but the storyline was just really not kind of working for me. There's a lot of drama in this, especially the kind of everything going on with the older brother and that sort of thing. There's also a little bit of a simplicity to the way that people are characterized. Like the older brother is a bad guy. He's just a pure baddie. And I just didn't love the total lack of nuance there. So I just kind of got frustrating the further in I went, as well as some plot points just not quite making sense to me why one thing would happen versus another. So yeah, it wasn't a bad book, but it just wasn't working for me as I was reading it. I was getting frustrated rather than enjoying it. So at 17%, I decided, you know, this is enough, and I decided to DNF it. Another romance novel that I DNF'd was Twice a Quinceañera by Yamile Saied Méndez. This is a contemporary romance that is about a woman who, right before her wedding, kind of calls it off with her fiance, but she's already paid for the venue, and she decides instead, because she's turning 30 just a day after the event, that she will go ahead and still use the event that she has paid for, but make it a double quinceañera to celebrate turning 30. And this just sounds like, you know, such a cool premise. I really liked that. But once I started reading, I realized that there were a couple of things that weren't working out for me. So I got 10% into this, and I realized that the main character, her family, is just so toxic. They have such unrealistic expectations, and they're just constantly not there supporting her parents especially. And I was really struggling with that. That was like kind of stressful to read about. And I think that the course of the book is going to explore her like developing healthier relationships or setting better boundaries, but it was just stressful to read about. And then the hero, we got kind of a chapter from his perspective, and I did not like him. I thought he was not a great guy. And for romances, like, you know, I really have to be rooting for the couple. And here I really was like, oh, I don't want to see this guy with this wonderful heroine who's dealing with so much in her life already. So I realized, okay, this is not quite for me, even though I think that this could be a really great story. It just kind of doesn't work for a couple of my personal preferences. So I DNF'd it. Okay, so that is everything that I read and DNF'd this week. If you guys have read any of these, or if you're interested in them, or if you want to tell me what you've been reading, I'd love to hear from you. Just leave me a comment down below.